Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the Dreaded Haggard podcast. We are back today to talk about Total War Warhammer Update 3.1.0. So we're going to be focusing on the multiplayer components of this patch. There's a lot of stuff for Campaign 2, but we're going to be focusing on the multiplayer as we usually do here on the channel. So let's break it down. Let's take a look. I'll give you my thoughts on the things that were good, some things that I think might have been a little bit of a mistake, and some oversights and things that hopefully will be addressed in the future as well. So scrolling on down, we can see the roadmap. Obviously, we have Tzeentch, Cathay, and Kislev coming up on patch 4.0, Thrones of Decay, and then To Be Revealed, which is obviously, from the looks of things, going to be some sort of Slaanesh action, right? But yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Certainly the roadmap looks promising. I'm really excited, actually. The biggest thing for me is like the Empire and Dwarf stuff. I think it's so cool, especially the Dwarves. They really, like, having played against them a little bit earlier today, I'm recording this after the first tournament post-patch. Man, the Dwarves... they could use some milk. It's not that they're like bad. It's just it really feels like you're always on the back foot when you're playing dwarves, especially in domination. Land battle's a little bit different. Obviously, you know, you can kind of play in a defensive position, have a cannon, and your opponent's going to be forced to attack you in that position. So it's a little bit better. But man, in dom, it's tricky, especially when you see the chaos dwarves can do many similar things, but also a little bit more in some ways. Granted, dwarves do have their advantages over chaos dwarves. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on in this patch. We got a new lord. We got Harry the Hammer, who's pretty awesome. I actually had a chance to use him today. Tested him out against some of the undead a little bit later on, and man, oh man, he was a lot of fun. And obviously Bretonnia getting a massive rework, which as far as today's event go, I think they went like 3-3, but I do foresee Bretonnia being like a solid contender. Like last patch, Bretonnia was, I think, like 60% win rate, and with these changes, which have only given them more options, really, I think we're going to be seeing Bretonnia becoming a pretty serious contender. So let's go ahead and scroll down. Update 3.1, you can see all the notes here up on the site. Harry the Hammer, the Will of Hashit, Regiments of Renown, Bretonnia update, good times indeed. So here's Harry the Hammer. Essentially what he does is he gives a melee defense buff to your nearby units, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's a debuff, yeah, I think it's a buff. And he removes the undead trait. But what I like about Harry is that he's a shielded foot character that has armor piercing. So there's tons of matchups for the Warriors of Chaos in which he's super viable. Like using Nurgle foot characters, Exalted Heroes, has always been very good against dwarves. It's always been very good against Grand Cathay. Those kind of like very tanky factions that don't have really good melee killing power and rely on their shooting, these type of characters are like a huge menace. So I can see Harry being an auto take for Warriors of Chaos against any sort of undead faction. Obviously, it's super strong. He lowers leadership and basically makes the undead just get crumped. They start to rout, and it's pretty hilarious. Like zombies and units like that, it's brutal. Harry gives them the dirty. So yeah, I think he's going to be a really nice addition, a niche addition to Warriors of Chaos, and like, yeah, any of the undead, I think he'll be pretty viable. And I would say against dwarves and Cathay, like having a shielded armor-piercing foot character that kind of has the stat line of a legendary lord is really not terrible. Granted, there might be better options, but I think he's a great addition, and I really, really like what they did with that for sure. So scrolling down to the RORs. Firstly, we're going to talk about the Cathay RORs. This is the Bandits of the Silver Road. So these are ROR peasant archers, which I think could see a little bit of niche play. What they do is they're basically like the Talons of Torquelada from the High Elves. They imbue fire weakness and they do fire damage. So what are the synergies here? Fire rain rockets, so you could shoot something and use them as a spotter for a fire rain rocket, which, you know, fire rains aren't used terribly often in competitive play, or at least in domination, but I can totally see them being used more synergistically with the Yin caster. So that's the caster that has the Dragon's Breath, which does fire damage. So you could shoot the target you want to kind of get going, and then you use the Dragon's Breath, and you're going to get an additional 20% damage with that spell, which really isn't bad. If you stack that with Spell Mastery, your Dragon's Breaths could actually be doing some good damage. Pretty micro-intensive, but I can see that being like a niche application. And also against undead factions that already have fire weaknesses, I can see them also being picked, which is pretty neat. So Armed to the Buckler Shield as well. So they have their own little shields, which is, gives them, a little bit more melee defense, I guess, up to 31. It's not terrible against like zombie summons. Next, we have the Hounds of the Blood Hunt. So these are the new ROR Fleshhounds of Khorne. They're, interesting. They get rid of the magic damage, which is cool. That's being done to them. So basically, Khorne's loathing to see his chosen servants felled by cowardly practices of the arcane. So these hounds basically get in there. They have a dampen contact effect, which allows them to temporarily remove magical attacks. So it's good for protecting. Like if you have a pack of Fleshhounds running around, maybe like having these guys there could work. Again, time will tell. They obviously, being an ROR, do have a better stat line, and what matchups would that be good in, right? So demons obviously take an additional 20% damage from magic, right? Because they have the demonic resistances. So yeah, I'd really have to kind of dwell on this one, but I feel like a lot of times people will probably just bring the regular Fleshhounds instead of paying extra for this. But maybe there are a couple niche matchups in which like you want to take a fight against a defensive position that has some magical defenders, and maybe these are going to be like your shock unit, right, moving in. But It looks like in the tooltip they have Gore Feast as well. It doesn't say that here, but yeah, it looks like that little tooltip. If you see where my mouse is on the screen, it would appear that they have the dreaded Gore Feast. So let me zoom in a little bit better for you guys. There you go. So yeah, if that's actually Gore Feast and they heal in combat, then and they have Vanguard deployment too. Yeah, okay. Well, they always have Vanguard, but yeah, if that's indeed the Gore Feast icon, which I think it is, and they heal, then that would make them very, very good. Next up, we have the Watchmen of the Night, Armored Kossars. So the existence of the Tsarina secret, police is no secret. So these ones are interesting. They're kind of like Kepler Guard Light. They have really good combat stats, 55, 49, 53 weapon strength. So very, very good sustained combat unit. Dude, look at the face. This guy's face looks like it's like Mr. Potato or something. It's pretty funny in that picture there. But yeah, I think they could see a little bit of play. And applications in which they could see play, I would say normally like Vampire Counts, I would probably bring these. The bonus for infantry, the sustained combat prowess of grinding through chaff and like hordes of units like that in conjunction with their durability makes them, I think, a decent choice there. Tomb Kings, like you would think they'd be good because they would crush pretty much all Tomb Kings infantry. But the problem with the Tomb Kings matchup is you're going to get Ushapti on top of them. You're going to get Grapos focus firing them. You're going to get catapult shooting them. So it's a little bit tricky. Against Khorne, I would say maybe, but Khorne has a lot of armor and these guys lack armor piercing. Against Dwarves, probably not, because they simply don't have enough armor piercing to probably be justified in that matchup. So really, these guys are like, in theory, good in matchups in which you're facing light armor. Maybe Beastmen. This could be like a niche against Beastmen, perhaps, because they're armored against all the gore units and they have really good killing power against light armor, so maybe. But yeah, they're a cool thing, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how they get in there. And they do also have the Rabble Rouser ability, which keeps nearby troops immune to fear and terror. So I guess, yeah, so that kind of solidifies the Vampire Count thing. Like, they're going to do their thing. But like Kislev is already immune to terror. Now that I think about it, yeah, so it's like, what's the point? Kislev's immune to terror. Like, they can't be terror routed until their By Our Blood has been procced. And the immune to fear, I guess, will help them from proccing it in the first place. So yeah, that's actually really redundant. Ooh, that's a little bit rough there. And unless I'm getting something wrong, you guys have to let me know. The Frolickers, Bubonic. So these guys have damage reflect and leadership. Hopefully they fix Nurglings. In the last patch, they were bugged. Classic. Just everything's bugged in this game, I feel like. But we still love it. It's our favorite. So yeah, these guys reflect damage. I have yet to test them. I could see them being like a good single. Like if somebody's defending an objective with like a chaff infantry piece, I feel like these guys with their good combat stats and damage reflection might be able to move in there and like really deal with like peasants and various pieces. But again, I think regular Nurglings probably still will be the go-to. But I would have to test this and see how the damage reflection really functions. But kind of interested to see them in action. Nurglings are, a solid piece. We have the Princes of Perfection. So these are devoted marauders of Slaanesh spears, and they have access to Perfect Vigor and Soporific Musk. I actually think this is probably one of the better RORs we've seen. A very cheap unit with anti-large in a meta which is going to be run by the Ogre Kingdoms, in my opinion. That's really good. So they have anti-large. They're very durable with 41 melee defense. They also debuff units that they're fighting. Very money. I think that the Princes of Perfection will be something you'll see in a lot of matchups. Anytime, Slaanesh versus Beastmen, Slaanesh versus Ogre Kingdoms, anything, even against Khorne, having anti-large against Fleshhounds and Minotaurs is great, and debuffing combat stats. So I think the Princes of Perfection will, for sure, get some love. I think they'll be getting played. So the Chromatic Abominations, Blue Horrors of Tzeentch ROR. So these Blue Horrors have a bit more ammo than a standard unit. So it looks like their ammunition is actually 16, which is very substantial. Basic Blues come with 5 for reference. So that's going to be 3 times more essentially. And as well as a powerful barrier replenishment that triggers anytime a spell is cast on the battlefield by friend. Oh, wow. Okay, so that might be something. Like, depending on how strong that heal actually is, if it's proccing nonstop from spells being cast by yourself and your opponent, it's like this tanky frontline unit that also has, well, not tanky, but by Tzeentch standards, with a good amount of ammunition and kind of skirmishing potential. That's really good. I actually think they might see some play. Again, Tzeentch is kind of on the lower rung of factions. They don't necessarily have anything that's like super broken or OP. Yeah, that's kind of sadly the defining trait of many of the more top tier factions these days. But yeah, they're not bad. So next we have the ROR Noblars. Now, these guys are pretty funny. These are the Toad Noblars. So I believe they come with poison. Yeah, and they regenerate when they're in water. So I'm going to have to talk to the map makers, our glorious map makers, and we're going to have to add some Dom maps with little puddles in the middle for these guys to heal in. Otherwise, they're basically pointless. But yeah, very cool stuff. Fun in campaign as well. Now, this is something that, before I forget, because, I'm getting a little older, kind of not remembering things quite as well as I once did. Big mistake giving all the Noblars bonus versus infantry. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but Ogre Kingdoms didn't need any buffs. They're like, in the previous patch, they were pretty much one of the strongest factions, like easily top tier 3. And now that one of their best units got another buff, because Noblar Trappers were already super good with a mini Mortis engine, good skirmishing, Yeah, and now they have like a bonus versus infantry on them. It's going to be bad. Ogre Kingdoms, I think once people pick up on this and really start to learn the builds, they're going to be just an unholy terror. So that's one thing that I think was a mistake this patch. I really do. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. Now for Bretonnia, so this is campaign. We don't care about that. And the Blessing of the Lady stats have changed. So the Blessing of the Lady now provides 15% ward save instead of physical resist. And it has only one charge. So if a unit gets broken, then the Blessing of the Lady leaves them in battle now. So anything you see with the Blessing of the Lady, like King Lewin, Hippogriff Knights, whatever, when they break, the Blessing of the Lady is going to be gone. So yeah. This left Bretonnia, yeah, they're talking, interestingly enough, they're talking about how like Bretonnia was like not good. Like here, they're saying this left Bretonnia is somewhat of an alert. I don't know what game they were watching. In the previous patch, Bretonnia had a 60% win rate. Yeah, understandably, their mechanics were a little bit archaic, and Bretonnia has a high skill gap. Like they're hard to play, even though they have a high win rate. Like usually, the people who play them are very skilled. We had players like the True Bretonian, these really just micro gods playing them. So understandably, maybe Creative Assembly is like buffing towards like the newer players and more intermediate, beginner players, which I understand that. It makes sense, right? You want to be inclusive to everybody. So I suppose I can understand the rationale for that. But man, oh man, Bretonnia, today they went 3-3. But yeah, I feel like Bretonnia is going to be a 65% win rate faction once people really get their hands on them. Could be wrong. So you can also take off the Blessing for 200 gold, but 15% ward save is very, very strong. So, the interplay between Bretonnian knights and peasants is now represented by two attributes. All knights and knight characters have the new knight attribute, and peasants have the peasant attribute. Knight errants also have a new ability called Impetuous. When knights errant are charging, any friendly unit within 35 meters becomes immune to psychology for 30 seconds. That is so badass. They certainly nailed the flavor of this, and I really like it. Just like these peasants kind of like, fighting some scary shit, and these big heavy knights coming in to like lift them from the bad situation they're in and give them like rally them. I think that's a super cool mechanic, and I really, really like what CA did with that. That's very cool. Note that peasants have the expendable attribute removed, as knights and knight peasant attributes now cover that gameplay interaction. Thankfully, they kept the capture weight for peasants correct, so we don't have to deal with what we're dealing with the Chaos Dwarfs. So all peasants have a new ability called Peasant's Duty. So they get 8 leadership when they're near knights. It's very similar to the Chaos Dwarfs, right? So they kind of just copy pasted that over to Bretonnia, which I think is cool. In exchange for this, they lowered the baseline leadership of most of the Bretonnian like units. Like so, the men at arms and peasant mobs got like I think minus 5 leadership, give or take. But now they can get buffed plus 8 if knights are nearby. So it's like a cool interplay that really like I think is representative of how the faction should play. So like it's super cool synergy too, because your front line is usually battle pilgrims, Grail Reliques, Foot Squires, and then a bunch of peasants. And Knights Errant are usually used in the front. They're used as like a frontal hammer, like a shock cav, whereas Knights of the Realm and your other cav, which are typically used, are used out on the flanks. So I love that the Impetuous is on the Knights Errant, who are like fighting amongst the peasants and giving them ITP, whereas the Knights of the Realm and like Grail Knights are a little bit more independent, working out on the flanks. Granted, they can still support peasants, but not quite in the same way that a Knight Errant can, by making them immune to terror when they charge in. So yeah, I love it. I think that's really cool. All right, so yeah, we're going to go down. More changes here. Grail Knights and Grail Guardians have been rebalanced, so they have a lower model count, which 48 and 32 respectively, which I think is great. This really captures the flavor of these like elite knights. So they really nailed the flavor on that one. All Bretonnian cavalry units used to have 60 models, but now some of them are being lowered. Hippogriff Knights have the full Grail package. So they have magical attacks, perfect vigor, and blessing of the lady. So that's a huge buff. They got 100 cost increase, so they're 2100 now, but the fact that they have perfect vigor, magical attacks, which is super pertinent in Total War Warhammer nowadays, and blessing of the lady, which is a ward save, dude, that's pretty sauce. That's really good. So yeah, I'm excited to see how they shake out. I think that Hippogriff Knights are, they were borderline good before, but now they're going to be quite good. So, Grail Reliques, also a little change. We'll get more into it as we get lower down. This is just like a big thing here. But Grail Reliques lost a little bit of leadership buffing. It was pretty heavy. But with all these other buffs coming in for the Knights and things like that, it would have been a little bit too much. So I do agree with the fact that they lowered it, but they give it a melee attack buff, which is good. So it like gives them fanatical devotion in terms of combat prowess, which I really like that change too. All right, so let's scroll down. Let's find our way down to the good times. The tooltip changes and whatnot. Couple ability changes here. Burning Wrath is the Hashit ability, which shoots a little fireballs. It's more accurate. Flames of Asgoro no longer like one-shots things, which is nice. We have your boy, Big Chungus. I'm totally blank. I can't even remember his actual name, so I'm just like using the name that we always call him on stream, but it's Ogre King. Greasus. God, man, it's just like no coffee today. But Greasus's AoE ability is now an AoE debuff, the one that like everyone has their price, which I think is great. It makes more sense. Everyone has their price, not just that guy. Everybody has their price, which is great. It lasts longer. It has a little bit of a longer recharge, but the range is now 35 meters. I think it's much better. Grease is, if there's a situation where you want to be in a blob fight, maybe versus undead, not bad. Not bad at all. So Blessing the Lady has been changed. We saw that. It's now word save stuff. And something I didn't mention above is that when a unit routes, it loses Blessing the Lady, and it only has one duration. So when a unit breaks, does some cowardly stuff, no, the lady's not going to be their homie anymore, right? So that's how that works out. Wasting Sickness is some Nurgle stuff. Lance Formation has been nerfed a little bit. So slightly less mass, charge bonus, and acceleration to compensate for the different buffs that Bretonnia's gotten. But trust me, Bretonnian players, you don't need to worry. Bretonnian cavalry still get in there and they go deep. Icon of Devotion, less leadership, buffs more melee attack. It's great. Still gives immune to psychology, which is one of the big epicenters of that. So yeah, very good. Khalid's Venom Staff, it instantly shoots now. So it's a minor thing, but Khalid will be a fraction, slightly more viable, I suppose. The Braid of Borderlow is better. That's a nice buff. Plus 4 extra. Because basically now, if you have Alberic, right, you have him moving with your Royal Hippogriff Knights, they're going to get plus 12 anti-large instead of plus 8, which is actually a pretty considerable difference. And that's really, really good. Helmet of Revress, Eltharion is so bad, and he's got so many other issues, but instead there's just like some random thing that barely carries any weight. Anyways, rant for another day. Eltharion needs some love. A lot of the high elf stuff does, I suppose. Well, maybe not in land battle, definitely in Dom. So now how it works is you see the Vial of Hashut. This is the item that in the previous patch you were seeing people use the Vial of Hashut to like stack literally 1 million negative fire resist on things with Kindle Flame and other synergies. But now it's capped out at 100%. So basically it only reduces their fire weakness by 20% now, but it lowers their armor by 60 instead of 40. So yeah, it's still very good. And I still think you're going to be seeing it with Burning Head combos or even with Alpha Strikes, because 20% damage plus armor debuffing is really good for like a Bale Taurus, or if you want to go with a Lamassu, for example, who hit pretty hard against light armor, you could totally do that. So yeah, it's capped at 100%, even if you combine all 5 sources of doing this. So I assume that applies to other factions as well, like the Empire with Kindle Flame and things like that. Chalice of Blood and Darkness, this is a big change. So this is the item that the Sorcerer Prophets have for the Chaos Dwarfs. Now, it used to be like a localized radius when people cast spells, it would heal you. Granted, it was bugged and it would still heal map-wide, but now it is for sure map-wide. But it has a cooldown between activations of 90 seconds, and it only heals you for 0.8 instead of 1.6. So it's a much more balanced item. I still think you'll be seeing people use it because, healing for a fair amount of health every, minute and a half is pretty good. And it's, there's no conditions. Your opponent just has to legitimately cast a spell, which they're going to be doing nonstop. So Stone Mantle now activates when the unit has 75% less HP remaining. So this is Astrogoth. He doesn't get his HP physical resist buff until he's below 75%, and now scales across. So they changed the scaling on it and made it so it has more of a slowing penalty too. So Astrogoth was nerfed. I played with him today. He's still very good, but he's a lot more fair. It doesn't like his mass is half of what it was before. He's a tiny. He's short. He's a dwarf, right? So he can't just like bully through heavy cavalry. He can get I had my Astrogoth get trapped in place, and it was a little bit of a precarious situation earlier. So now we're getting on to faction specific stuff. So Beastmen. Basically just mass changes to a couple units. Nothing really significant to go over. And they removed Centaurs from the Roiling Death Beastmen. Oh, okay, it's a campaign thing. So yeah, they just gave mass to Razorgores, Feral Mancores, and Razorgore Chariots. Totally fine. Cool stuff. Beastmen are still going to be kind of a mid-tier faction, and that's good. It's the more mid-tier factions, the better, right? We went over the Bretonnian changes. King Lewin got magic attacks on all of his mount variants. He got more HP, which is really good. I always thought it was so stupid how Karl Franz and King Lewin had like barely 5,000 HP. It was and then these like Astrogoth has 7. What the hell is this? Grimgor, I understand him having a lot, but Deathclaw should have as much HP as Grimgor. It's like a giant war beast, right? So, and we're seeing that here with King Lewin. Hopefully we see that with the Empire as well. But yeah, King Lewin getting a big HP buff, getting magic damage, slightly more effective at splash. He gets slightly more mass, which is great. Alberic getting the same treatment, a slight multiplayer cost increase for him, which is totally fine, especially considering the buffs to his items. He got 1,000 more hit points, which is awesome. Melee attack buffs, loses a little bit of charge bonus, some slight adjustments to his damage values, but Alberic is definitely going to be a very solid pick in a couple matchups, I think. I could see Alberic being very good against Ogre Kingdoms. Giving your Questing Knights anti-large, giving your Hippogriff Knights anti-large to kill things like Sky Striders, I think that could be plus 12 anti-large is pretty fat. Henri Lamassif getting some hit points, which is great, getting a little bit of mass. The Damsel getting mass, a lot of mass changes. You can see Faenchantress getting some more mass, although, man, she was only 600. I guess that makes sense. Green Knight getting a big mass increase. So you can see they gave a lot of mass changes to a lot of these different characters from older factions, which clearly were a little bit power crept. Now, this is the big thing. Morale for all like the Bretonnian units, -5. So they kind of got the undead treatment, but between the knight buffs and the Grail Relic giving like melee attack now, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. So you can see the baseline morale of all these units going down, which I think is good. I think that was a good change. I honestly like the Bretonnian changes. I think that some of the cavalry might be, I don't know, we have yet to tell, but some of those cav are crazy strong. Where it's too, I can't really draw conclusions. I like the direction they went, like aesthetically, but we don't have enough data or evidence to really say whether or not it's like, you know, the changes are going to be good for the meta, considering they were at 60% before. Like, you would like to make them more fun and dynamic to play while also not making them like a 65-70% win rate faction. But we'll see. It's too early to tell. Mount Diaman getting a little bit of changes here. Nothing terribly significant. Knights Errant getting speed buffs, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so the run speed is up to 84 now from 78. So yeah, all the Bretonnian cav units, I believe, got a speed buff. Yeah, 84 speed on the Bretonnian heavy cavalry is insane. I mean, I know their cav should be better than other factions, but man, that is really quick. You have those like haggard Wild Riders. Wild Riders, oh my god, the most neglected unit. They're sitting at like 80 something, like 85 speed, just like these heavily armored Bretonnian knights like outrunning them. It's like, oh god. Yeah, hopefully they get a look at. But honestly, I'm enjoying these Bretonnian changes. I think it'll be fun. So we'll see. It's all fun in games until you just get wrecked over and over, and then they become the obnoxious meta that everybody hates. But we'll see. Hopefully not. It's hard. Bretonnia is like a hard faction to dislike. They're so cool. So Pegasus Knights getting a bonus to their bonus versus large, and Grail Knights. Here you go. This is the wall of text right here. So multiplayer cost is up to 1,700. They lost entities. They gained HP, lost charge bonus, plus 30 armor is fat. Really, really nice. And the big thing is they got a huge armor piercing buff. Both Grail Knights and Grail Guardians. So their armor piercing went from 15 to 30, which is massive. Like, armor piercing is one of the biggest determining stats of effectiveness with these type of cavalry units, and that is fat. And also, if you go down to Grail Guardians, same treatment. Grail Guardians got a big armor piercing buff. They got mass increases. They got HP. They're just all around better. And honestly, I think Grail Guardians are going to be pretty good. Like, I used some in a match earlier today when I was playing, and they were solid, man. They were really solid. Like, they're not only tanky, but now they hit hard too. The fact that they have armor piercing means they can punch through positions. Like, here's the thing. Their base damage got increased by 1, and their armor piercing got increased by 18. There was no downward adjustment on their damage. It's all up, baby. These things, they're going to thump, and they also got increased splash damage. So they can hit up to 3 models now. Man, they're going to be good. We saw Hippogriff Knights getting perfect vigor, multiplayer cost, all sorts of cool stuff. Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, all the different cav units basically got buffed. So overall thoughts on Bretonnia, I'm very excited for the changes. I think they're super fun. Bretonnia, like, is such a neat faction, and I love those unique things, like the peasant knight combo and the knights charging in and like rallying the peasants is so rad. But at the same time, I'm a little bit nervous about how strong they might be. They were at 60% last season, or 58%, something like that. And I think when really good players discover how to play them, they could be a little bit tyrannical. But again, I could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong. Hopefully not. We'll see. I have the lady wills it. I want, let Bretonnia have their time in the sun, but let's not let them become like, old Chaos Dwarves, Ogre Kingdom, Slaanesh. We don't want them to be like Slaanesh territory. Anyways, Chaos Dwarves. So Chaos Dwarves had a lot of bullshit. One thing Creative Assembly did miss, which I'm super disappointed about, is they forgot to nerf the capture weight on laborer units. Granted, with the other nerfs to Chaos Dwarfs, it's not the biggest deal anymore. Chaos Dwarfs are probably going to sit around a 50% win rate faction, 55%, even with the capture weight bug. Maybe like 55 once people, get used to playing them again. But yeah, that's a really disappointing thing. I mean, we told them, and it was just, I guess, maybe they forgot or something. It's, I really wish that had happened, because it's like, there's this constant issue with like capture weight and bugged units, and like, oh man, it's just, yeah. But aside from that, I'm happy with a lot of the changes Chaos Dwarfs got. So let's go through them. So going down here, units. So Astrogoth lost, he's more expensive by 200 gold. He lost about 600 HP. His entity mass was halved, and that's pretty big. He's still going to be very strong. I actually thought they would hit his HP a little bit harder. But yeah, he's still going to be good. So anybody who's an Astrogoth enjoyer, I've been testing him since the patch. He's quite good. He's quite good. So he just gets trapped a little bit more now. Like losing like 5,000 mass, which is stupid. Now he's a little bit more normal, but even 2,500 mass is still a hell of a lot. You saw Fey Enchantress had like, what, 1,200? A lot of the Bretonnian characters have like, 2,200, the heavy duty ones. So he's still like really heavy mass, but yeah. I don't know why Drazhoat the Ashen got a cost increase. Unless they just wanted to bring it, like maybe they felt the Great Taurus was undercosted. Zaytan the Black lost a little bit of mass. Sorcerer Prophet got a cost increase, which is understandable. He's very good. The Vial of Hashit plus the healing item is very good. All right, so Overseer got a decreased. He's never going to see any play. Still terrible character. El Gordo Backstabber. I think he was a little bit undercosted, so for sure buffing his cost a little bit is warranted. Demon Smith Sorcerer got a cost increase. Don't really know if he needed that to be fair, but it is what it is. Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses lose the bonus charge defense versus large. I never really understood why they had it in the first place. I felt like their shooting was enough of a deterrent against cavalry, so that's a good change. Looking down here, it looks like Granite Guard got a buff to their melee attack, which is cool. And they also reload a little bit faster. All right, I like that. Now, a big change for Chaos Dwarves is their blasting charges. They used to just like instant delete. It basically was like the dwarf blasting charges on steroids. Literally, it was just pretty ridiculous. So now all the blasting charges that the Blazing Beards of Basharak and the Ironsworn have access to don't have as good of armor piercing. So they're basically the same as Dwarven blasting charges, which is much more fair. Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits, they got lost a little bit of base missile damage. Why? They weren't even that good. Okay. Infernal Ironsworn here, they got a slight cost increase, which I don't think you needed to give them a cost increase, taking into account the fact that you nerfed their blasting charges. But I don't know. I'd have to directly compare their stats to the Iron. Like, they should basically just cost the same as Ironbreakers, which I believe cost, what, 1,300 or something? I don't think Ironbreakers cost 1,400. And Bull Centaur Renders, this is great changes here. Really like this by CA. They cost 150 more. They have less melee attack. They have less missile block chance, and their collision box has supposedly been increased. I've heard some reports that it still is a little bit of an issue, but we'll see. So that's a great change. I like that one by CA. Same thing for the other Bull Centaurs. The E Centaur right here. Somebody got a little bit excited on the keyboard, but yeah, really good changes to the Bull Centaurs because they were super OP. They were very, very, oppressive. Looks like cost decreases on many of the monsters, which is good. I like that change. I think they could be utilized a little bit more. Kadai Destroyer getting a buff to its armor as well as its morale. I love these changes. 120 armor is solid. I think that's going to make it more playable in conjunction with the buff to its morale. Burning Bright is now only active when 25% HP remains. So yeah, cool changes to the Kadai. Same thing with the Fireborn armor morale. And I think Fireborn will have a bit more of a place. Yeah, a little bit more. I mean, yeah, you can bring anti-infantry Bull Centaurs, but the Kadai Fireborn bring magic damage to the table. And in my experience, they hit harder than the Bull Centaurs like on the charge. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Magma Cannon got a cost increase. It lost a little bit of accuracy and yeah, has shorter range at 380, which makes sense. If obviously this game's supposed to be modeled on Warhammer Fantasy Tabletop, right? And the Magma Cannon in Tabletop had half the range of a Great Cannon. So, any Chaos Dwarf players should feel like you got off lucky. This thing literally should have had like 250 range, but instead you're at 380. Which is a good compromise because it allows dwarves and other factions to actually trade with them. Whereas before, Magma Cannons could basically just annihilate enemy cannons with their AoE damage and whatnot, and their equal range. So I really like that change. Deathstreaker Rocket Launchers, I think they got some buffs. Yeah, base weapon damage buff. They lost a little bit of armor piercing. They got a bonus for its infantry, though. It looks like on their spread fire shot, which is nice. So Deathstreakers might be more of a viable kind of dynamic pick now. They won't quite have the packed punch. But, if you're kind of wanting to hedge your bets a little bit, I can see Deathstreakers getting a little bit of action. So Projectile, a bonus for its infantry, went from 0 to 25, which is pretty fat. They have a bigger calibration distance, and the projectiles travel faster, so a lot of different changes there. Dreadquake Mortar got a cost reduction. I actually think the Dreadquake is going to be quite good on some maps. It still friendly fires a lot, but, 2,000 gold, you're starting to get to a bit of a better bargain. And the thing is, in Domination mode, you can unsummon a Dreadquake. So if you can use all its ammo and unsummon it, and even if it gets like 1,500 value, you're going to get 1,000 gold back, assuming it hasn't taken any damage. So in Dom, I can see Dreadquakes, like earlier in one of my games today, if you guys go back and watch the Chaos Dwarf vs. Dwarf match, I had a Dreadquake get a direct hit on a bunch of bunched up Dwarven Quarrelers. It literally one-shotted them and shattered them instantly. So yeah, it can be very good. Now, Iron Demon may move and shoot simultaneously. I have yet to test these. But I'm super excited to try it. Obviously, Creative Assembly definitely, they missed the capture weight thing. But aside from that, like the direction they've gone with Chaos Dwarves is good, right? Like nerfing those really oppressive units and fixing the war machines. And we have yet to tell if they're actually fixed, but yeah, it'll move and shoot. And it got a little bit of armor, which is great. Let's see about turn speed. Did they do that? A little bit more acceleration? Yeah, we'll see. I'm really excited to try it. Iron Demon, Demon's Tongue. I tried the Skullcracker out today. It felt okay. Plus 20 melee attack, and it was being shot by Dwarven guns, so it didn't get a chance to really shine, but I do like the direction we're going. Time has yet to tell, right? Time has yet to tell. So yeah, looking down here, these are basically just campaign traits for the Dark Elves. We didn't quite get the Dark Elf mount cost right last time around, so we've taken another look and rebalanced them. As a result, Rakarth and Loki are now a little bit cheaper. This is an interesting one because Dark Elves are like okay in domination mode, but in land battle, Dark Elves are like top tier. So yeah, it almost makes me feel as if they're maybe like balancing Dark Elves around land battle a little bit, which could hurt them in domination mode, but we'll see. Why is this all campaign stuff? I don't care about campaign stuff. Let's go down here. Come on, there we go. So Malekith's mount costs 150 more. So you can see cost increases to all the Dark Elf mounts. Crone Hellebron got a cost reduction, which is cool, on pretty much all of her mounts. So that's nice. Maybe the Cronebone Mortis engine will come back. Who knows? Rakarth got cost increases on his mounts. Let's go ahead and see what else. Dreadlord, yeah, it's just all adjustments to the cost of the different mounts characters. So apparently the Dark Elf mounts were undercosted, but yeah, even still, I don't know. Yeah, Dark Elves aren't played super often in Dom nowadays. I don't see too many people playing them, but yeah, this will make them weaker because obviously they lost. They're going to be more expensive, so we'll see. I mean, yeah, let's take a look here. Go to Total Tavern. See, I mean, Dark Elves, did they get played today at all in our tournament? Let's see. Do we have any Dark Elf enjoyers? Dark Elves, Dark Elves, Dark Elves. Where are you? Are they just like they got played once? Yeah, they're not getting a ton of play right now, but we'll see. Dwarves got no changes. I love it. The list of dwarf changes is short, to say the least. Next, we have the Greenskins. Greenskins, obviously, pump wagons are very broken. If you guys saw my most recent tournament, holy shit, they've been broken for a while. I had been sent some replays of people using like 1 or 2 pump wagons, but holy shit, never to the extent that I saw in that tournament. So hopefully that's something they'll be able to fix in the next patch. And they did try and fix it. It was reported to Creative Assembly, but they literally just lowered the charge bonus. Whereas I don't believe the issue is with their charge bonus. It's more so the fact that their hit profile is bugged. They attack like I think it's like 2 or 3 times more than they should. So yeah, hopefully they fix that. But Azag got more mass. Snotling Pump Wagons lost 5 charge bonus. Yeah, that's not going to fix it. You got to fix the core of the unit. We got this patch, and then day 1 we had a modder contacted me, and he's like, "Hey, I fixed the pump wagons. Took me 5 minutes." So then I went and tested his mod, and yeah, lo and behold, the pump wagons are working, and they're not like just insta-killing lords. So pump wagons basically right now are functioning as anti-large units. A pump wagon, if you take 4 pump wagons against 4 Empire Knights, the Empire Knights will lose. If you take 4 pump wagons against a Bale Taurus, a Bull Centaur Render, and some Wolf Riders, they'll kill all 3. They'll kill all your shit. They're super broken right now, and I really hope they fix them, man. It's like seeing people like come into tournaments and using like these type of like buggy units and just take it really reminds me of like when I used to play in 40k tournaments a lot. You would like Games Workshop would write a very ambiguous rule that was slightly misworded, and then people would show up to the tournament trying to like abuse the gray area of the rule. And technically it's like allowed, it's in the rules, but it was like not in the spirit of the game, and it's not as like the actual intent was for balance. And I feel like that's like the same thing with pump wagons and like a lot of these like, you know, shenanigans we've been seeing. So hopefully CA, if you're listening, I believe in you guys. Just get in there, fix this bad boy. We'll be good. We'll all be cackling together. All right, so High Elves. Mass increases on a bunch of different characters, acceleration. Yeah, so just speed and mass adjustments. No real substantial changes to the High Elves here from what I can see. Nothing that's really worth taking note. Yeah, so now we go down to Khorne. Again, mass increases to the Juggernaut, so you can see a lot of things getting mass increases so they can like not get trapped as easily, which I think is kind of a fun thing. Kislev Ulrika got an ammo reduction? What? So oh wait, is that an ammo of primary missile weapon? So she lost ammo. I didn't think that her ammo was that good. Okay. Dragon of Flame Resistance, and looks like some campaign stuff. So yeah, we got adjustments to her mass and speed as we're seeing. This is a big buff. And, you know, it might not like show now, but the Armored Kossars getting 10 models and literally 1,000 HP. When Kislev gets some DLC, you're going to feel that. And that's going to be good. I think they need it. I love this change. Good job, CA here. That's really good. Armored Kossars with great weapons, similar change. Zargard getting a better bonus for his infantry. And yeah, good changes to Kislev overall. I like that Creative Assembly isn't going like 2 balls deep on buffing Kislev, and they're kind of like, because obviously they're going to get some DLC, and if you buff them too much and give them a DLC, then they're just going to be tyrants. You know, so you got to be careful with that. Lizardmen. All right. So for Lizardmen, Tehennowin and his Red Crested. So all the Red Crested and like skink units, I think Tehennowin and the Red Crested skinks have gained immunity to contact effects, which it's cool. It's going to make them, you know, less resistant or less vulnerable to soporific musk, to poison. That's basically it. So yeah. Like, it makes them slightly stronger in the Nurgle matchup and a couple other matchups as well. I like that. I think it's cool. So you can see all these immune to contact effects on the screen here. So a lot of fun stuff going down, and that is for all the red crested skinks. Salamander hunting packs got a little bit of a splash increase, and yeah. Hey man, Lizardmen players, I think Lizardmen are a great faction. They're really cool, they have fun flavor, and yeah, I think they're in a good spot. Like, they feel good to play against, they feel good to play as. Doesn't feel like they're broken. And yeah. So Norska is very strong. If Norska gets a DLC or an update, easily, if they get like any good units in that, or good lords, I easily think Norska is going to be a 70% win rate faction, 75. Like, they're very borderline, like, maybe too strong. Some of the best infantry in the game, great skirmishers, great poke, like good monstrous units, good lord choices. Everything is very clean and cost effective with Norska. Fimir got looks like Fimir Miststalkers. Okay, they changed it to a bonus versus infantry. Marauder Chariots got some mass, so nothing like terribly substantial. So Norska is like, I think, borderline a little bit too strong, but they're like in that territory where like they can still be beaten by a lot of different factions. But yeah, Norska is just very scary, and yeah, I think it's fine. Nothing too crazy. Now, Nurgle. Nurgle got mass increases. That's pretty much it. All right, Ogre Kingdoms. This is a big mistake. Colossal mistake. Giving Noblars bonus versus infantry is really not a good idea. They already are good against infantry with their Mortis Engine effect and their throwing weapons. Like, these guys, like, Ogres are going to just be really, really, really tyrannical this season, I think. I think Ogres are going to be the strongest faction with... I don't know, what would be my other predictions? I think Ogre Kingdoms. Like, I think once we really get to the sweatier tournaments, especially like season finals, or, you know, if we have any money tournaments that are big, you're going to see the Ogre sweat come out. I think Ogres were already top tier, and now they're going to be like, that seems like a small change, but Noblar Trappers are like a unit you see 4 or 5 of every, or maximum amount every time, right? So, Skaven, yeah, changes. Now, we can talk about, this is a moment we can talk about a change as well in Dom, which is your Lord has to be your Lord. Now, I love the change. It's not quite exactly what I wanted. What I wanted was to make it so your Lord is always your Lord, regardless of where he is in your army. So if your Lord is in reinforcements, he's your Lord. What I didn't want happening was people using Noblars and Skaven Slaves as their Lord, unsummoning it, summoning in a real Lord, which then is invulnerable to the Lord sniping penalty, right? But I didn't mind people hiding their Lord in reserves, and opting to bring it out later. But apparently it has something to do with the coding of the game, where how it works in the domination coding is that, and even lobby coding in general, not just domination, if I'm not mistaken, is your Lord always occupies the first slot of your army. So I understand the constraints. You know, I'll take the scraps. I'm really actually like the change. It's much better than before. We're finally going to be seeing Lords. None of that. I mean, you'll still see people bringing cheap Lords and unsummoning them, but then it's more of a fair trade-off. Because, like, earlier today, we had a game where Houseplant brought Balthazar Gelt and unsummoned him. But then, by doing that, you can't have Boris Todbringer. You can't have any other options. You can't really have a functional Lord. And same goes for Skaven. Skaven can't do that power grab nonsense anymore, where they, unsummon, get the power grab, and then would bring in, like, Ikit Claw. And if you kill Ikit, there's no penalty. It's stupid. It's like, that's a core mechanic of Total War. It's like the Lord routing penalty, the Lord being killed penalty. And people were just able to completely ignore that aspect of the game. And it clearly wasn't intentional. Having talked to people, behind the scenes, it wasn't the intent. So I think the direction we went is quite good. It's a step forward, 100%. So Skaven, can they abuse power grab? Yes, they still can. You can bring a Grey Seer with nothing and unsummon it, but you're giving up your Lord slots. I honestly think Skaven, they were a 65% win rate last season, which is definitely overtuned. And I think a lot of that is due to power grab, because you were basically, the Skaven were getting +8 leadership on everything. It was a huge crutch. Very unfair. Like, one of the weaknesses of Skaven was that their leadership is low, but then they just get +8 on everything. It's like, that's an insane buff. So I think Skaven will sit probably, at first, I think we're going to see Skaven like 35 to 45%, because Skaven players are going to have to relearn how to play them. But I think once people relearn how to play the Skaven and figure them out, easily 50% faction. Assuming, good players pick them up, which I think they should, because I still think Skaven have a ton of potential, and we'll be totally fine once people get them back. So it's going to be some growing pains, though, especially for all the sweats who really kind of abuse that mechanic. They'll probably abandon the Skaven, but even still, I do think that true Skaven mains will rise, and they'll do great. So Slanesh here, let's see. Oh, that's nice. So made Inkari actually connects better. That was a big bug with Inkari before, is Inkari had a lot of problems making contact, so and actually hitting things. So that's nice. Devoted Marauders got a cost decrease, which is fine. I think they're kind of in a nice spot, and the Spears are down to 500, which is, they lost their bonus for infantry, so going back down to 450. They lost their physical resist, it's halved. I think that's good. Good stuff. So why does Karl Franz doesn't have that much HP? I would have liked to see him get an HP buff. His HP is very low. He's like around 5,000, and Lewin's at 6.4. I mean, he's literally like, you know, Sigmar incarnate, sort of. I mean, I know he's not quite as like, he's not a Grail Knight or anything, but he's wielding the Warhammer. I mean, Franz should be a little bit tankier, so hopefully something they catch in future patches. But Empire's honestly in a good spot right now. I think Empire's a very good faction, a very solid, balanced mid-tier faction, which is, it's just, that's like the chef's kiss. That's what you want. The mass changes to all the different cavalry units. Greatswords getting a nice buff, damage buff on both basic and armor piercing, and a bonus for his infantry. I could see Greatswords being used against Norska, against Marauder champions and baseline Marauders. I could see them being used against Khorne. I'm really happy for the Greatsword changes. So great stuff there from CA. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think the Empire needs changes. I think you just maybe give Karl Franz a little bit more HP and you're good. Tomb Kings. Yes, Bone Giant is more accurate. Hell yeah, baby. Let's go. Give it to me. Yes, Bone Giant's one of my favorite units on the Tomb King roster. It also is a really good tech against like Chaos Dwarfs for sniping their artillery. So, oh yes. Tomb Kings, man, off to a good start this season. Definitely. Tzeentch, they could have used some buffs, but I'm also on that same coin. Like, Tzeentch is one of those factions you have to be careful with because they have some really like toxic mechanics in some ways. That's more of a land battle issue. But yeah, they're going to get a DLC soon. Probably get some good units that'll compensate for their weaknesses. They'll be okay. Tzeentch, don't worry. The Changer, he's looking out for you guys. You're going to be good. Vampire Coasts. So Damn Knights Errant got... Oh, look at that. The Damn Knights Errant got Impetuous. Not that giving immune to psychology to undead matters, but hey, if you have Aranessa, I guess you could help. So Deathreek Terrorgeist got some changes, and the Gallows Giant will be reloading faster. Very cool. So Vampire counts. Yes. Let's take a look. Any changes? So mass changes. Mass changes, and that's pretty much it. So all campaign stuff. Warriors of Chaos. I think Warriors of Chaos are awesome. Like, I love playing the faction. They're really fun. The dynamic nature of their builds is really cool. Like Festus healing builds, like Valkia mobility, mixing Slanesh Cav in with like some Nurgle troops. It's really fun. I think Warriors of Chaos have some of the coolest flavor and really, really fun playstyle. So I'm excited to kind of experiment with all the different builds we can do. So again, just mass changes. And the Marauders of Slanesh getting the associated cost decreases as well. Wood Elves, let's take a look. So War Dancers, yeah. So War Dancers and Blade Singers got, yeah, the Woven Mist. So the Woven Mist, I believe it gives a missile resist when you're approaching. So that's really cool. I mean, overall, nice changes to the Blade Singers and War Dancers, but I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't address Wild Riders. Wild Riders have just been an absolute joke of a unit for a long time. I mean, still they're used because they're what you have, but they're super overcosted. And I mean, they either need a buff or a cost reduction, in my opinion. That'd be really nice. And yeah, the rest of it's campaigns. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We went over pretty much everything. Overall, I'm like, the patch is like, I guess one way of saying it is like, yeah, it's good. It's a good patch. Like, I love the Lord changes. There's some weird balancing decisions, like buffing Ogre Kingdoms, like things that are missed here and there. But overall, like the big thing of fixing the Lord unsummoning thing, I think is a big step forward. I think the capture weight stuff needs to be addressed. There's just a lot of like little things here and there that just keep adding up that just need to be addressed. We're like, I say this every patch, we're so close to greatness and perfection, but like we're just not quite, we just can never reach it. What's the myth of the guy who like pushes the rock up the hill? I feel like that's us, you know? Like we're always so close to the top, then it rolls down a little bit. We just keep going, but we're still making that like 1 inch of progress, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's the most apt analogy for Total War multiplayer ever, but yeah, overall, you know, I'm happy that we've gotten some progress, and yeah, the Chaos Dwarf changes are good. Just got to fix the Chaos Dwarf capture weight. You got to fix the pump wagons. Got to look at Ogre Kingdom's balance for domination mode, whether that be cost adjustments or other things. And that's just my prediction. It's too early to say, but I think it's going to be kind of Ogre. It's all Ogre now. But yeah, the Bretonnian changes are badass. I love the aesthetic of it, and I really hope that it's not too strong. But yeah, we'll see. I'm so excited to try Bretonnia. They've always been one of my favorite factions, lore-wise, so I don't play them too much, though. More of an Empire guy, you know. That's how I roll. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. That is it. We'll be back with more Dreaded Haggard podcast eventually. I don't know when. Whenever we need to talk like this, we'll be back. And I appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for hanging out. And let me know what you want to see, by the way. If there are more certain types of tournaments, whatever, battles, things, I don't know, any type of video, whatever. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. And that is it for tonight.